go because I was seriously ill. I was out of work for quite some time. While I recovered, I thought I would go back to work in one of the local San Diego casinos, and I auditioned and did get a job. Well, strange things started happening. The moment I would fall asleep at night, something would whap against my window or whap against the roof of the house, and I was on the second story. I could hear voices, and it sounded like someone around outside. Now, I lived in the country at the time. When I went to work, attitudes began to change toward me, and everything just felt weird, and it was like drama being carried out in the workplace, like little theatrics. Finally, I was on a game, and I believe I was hit with some kind of weaponry again. I never saw anything, but all of a sudden there was all the security around. Groups of dealers were always watching me. The same thing happened, hot and sweaty, couldn't think, couldn't function, thought I was going to faint, didn't function well on the game, and it was just very bad. I left there frightened because I assumed I was being stalked by a single person. But what happened was every time I went back into casinos, this gang stalking thing would happen with this weird energy. 10 years ago, after that local San Diego casino, I went back to North Lake Tahoe because I thought this must be me. There must be something wrong with me. So I'm working. I was threatened. My car was threatened. All these dramas were carried out in the workplace, and strange things were happening in my home. As I lay down to sleep, the bed would be buzzing. And sometimes it would be buzzing so badly I'd be racked with pain. It didn't matter where I went in the house. As I go to sleep, something would whap against the window. I would hear these voices sort of not in my ear, but sort of, it seemed like on the side of my head or something. I called an investigator, and he was very willing to work with me and said he'd been hearing some things that were similar over on the south shore of Lake Tahoe. I was still being threatened at work, and then I was targeted on tables with that same, whatever that is, weaponry, electromagnetic, whatever it might be. You can have that happen to you, and no one sees it. No one knows what's going on with you. You might look shaky because I'm kind of stubborn, and I wanted to know what was going on, and I didn't just walk off my game and quit. I wanted to know what was happening. I was with my significant other, and I would get buzzed in bed, and he would not. But yet, if his hand fell across the bed to my side of the mattress, it would start twitching and jumping. I was told that my teeth would be targeted, and they were, and now I have to have extensive work done on them. My ears were targeted, and when I had perfect hearing before, I'm now very hard of hearing. A couple times I would put my finger in my ears, and blood would come out on the end of my finger. Terrible headaches. The gang stalking went so far as to make sure I couldn't get a job. If I walked in my local markets that I'd been using for years up there, things would be said, and laughter and weird stuff. It was very uncomfortable.
Okay. Diana?
Yes, am I over time?
No. Can you just tell me how long you've been a target now?
Okay, I'm sorry. I've been a target close to 20 years.
Okay. Diana, we're running out of time, so I'm going to have to move on to Janet, if Janet came back on the line.
Okay, I'm back on.
Okay, Janet, why don't you go ahead?
All right. I'm actually not in Australia at the moment. I'm in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear you.
I've come back from being in Iran, and I've been in various other countries. I've been trying to get medical evidence, which I have achieved by going to countries where you can simply pay up, and then they'll do what you ask them to. So you can get x-rays, you can get CT scans, and you can get MRI scans. But I also came to the Middle East because I've never been here before, but so that I hoped that it wouldn't happen here anymore, that there wouldn't be any more electronic harassment. And much to my amazement and huge disappointment, the information is all passed on from country to country, and the different people take over. Now, this has happened to me in the UK, in Australia, in New Zealand, in France, in other Asian countries where I've been on holiday, and I had hoped that places that weren't associated with the British Commonwealth, which is Canada as well, or with the USA, would not do this, and would not have people breaking in wherever you live, stealing things, attacking you during the night, and certainly burning your body to bits, or whatever their tactic is at the time. But I found that it's quite extraordinary now that in the Middle East, and especially in Iran, which we all know is in the axis of evil, that this sub-government, or whatever it is, that, you know, whoever's keeping the database of all the people and organizing it, it does actually extend into these countries. When you're in this, it varies whether the armed forces are involved, whether the Navy is involved, whether the Air Force is involved. Usually the police are, because you have a police presence around you all the time. And then at a lower level down from them, you've got civilians who move in next to you, who come up and do what is called street theatre, with stupid conversations. They will either give you some information about yourself, which is something they shouldn't possibly know, or something that is going to happen to you, or something that has just happened to you. And that continues to be the case. I'm in very poor physical shape. I have regularly have my eyes burned when I'm sleeping. I have no skin on my feet, and now, from having been in Iran, where I was physically assaulted by some guys on a motorbike who knocked me over and dragged me along the pavement, I've had to lie still for 6 weeks, and during that time, all that time, I was also being electronically harassed. So I've got no skin on my feet, not much on my face. This started, I realise now, from being a child, and I was born in England, and I think that's why I'm so strongly harassed, because unlike the bad guys and the CIA in America and the Russians and the Koreans and the Chinese and all the terrible countries that there are in the world, they've all admitted to this sort of thing. They admit to torturing people, and they admit that there have been programs to do with mind control and using electronics. But Britain has never admitted anything. And now, from the MRIs that I've got, plus looking back at my life history, you can see that the technology and the hardware that's in my body is very old. In more recent times, when I've been attacked and knocked out and taken away, I've had more modern things put in as well. But there are very clear pictures of some very old stuff, and I think that's why they're going at me so strongly.
Janet, I've received some photographs from you on the edge, and I'd like to be able to post those to the public if you'd like me to, in connection with your testimony this evening.
Yes.
Okay.
The other reason that I came to the Middle East was that I was not surviving in Western countries. There isn't going to be a long survival to all of this. And what I thought was that if it was not happening in those countries, then the people living in those countries should know, and that they should have the proof, and that if the people in those countries were prepared to do all the medical evidence on myself, including going to the extent of having operations which would be filmed, photographs. I mean, I didn't care what they did to me. The as long as this came out in public, and that their people were warned that they had exactly